Life is hectic.
Some days are just a blur.
We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, and we help busy couples stay married for life.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast.
I am so over winter.
I know, as we just sit here, we look out. It looks so pretty that we have snow. Just, we're in Michigan, people. Wherever you are, you've probably had your share of winter too, because winter has been crazy across this country in 2019, I think. But as we look out the window, the snow looks so pretty.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
But here's
the sun is shining.
My mind goes, it's March. It's March. This should all be gone. We should have green grass. We should have.
And the other problem is
it's
freezing
flowers? Crocuses.
They should be then the tulips and all that. But no, not here in Michigan. It is still snowy. And boy, I am so over it. I'm so over it. Just give me sunshine and warm weather. Just a bead of sweat coming down.
Yeah, you just want to fly somewhere warm and step off the plane and then just get right back on it again.
Exactly.
Just feel that warm. Well, we get to do that though. We get to go to warm places,
yes.
So that is nice. But our friends are in Florida right now, and I'm not ready for them to come back because they're going to come back all tan and happy and. That's just not going to be very fun, but that's okay. We'll get over winter. It's just a season.
That's right.
Like your marriage goes through seasons.
Yes, this year, this season's lasting a little long. That's for sure. Well, we get asked a lot of different questions about our life and our lifestyle, and one of the questions we get asked when we're out on the road is, what do you do when you're home? We know when you're out on the road, you're doing shows, you're traveling to and from shows, but when you are at home, do you just sit around in your PJs all day and do nothing? Well, no. Are you kidding me? We do podcasts in our PJs. That's probably just funny to us, but sometimes we just got to make ourselves
now we
laugh.
probably have listeners going, you're in your pajamas, and they're trying to envision us in our pajamas.
No, I'm in my sweatpants, which are my
your pajamas.
My dress sweats.
And a jacket you have from Spring Hill Camps that has to be like 25 years old.
Probably, but it's
really old.
It's my jacket.
I always want to, do you guys have pajamas?
It's my house coat.
I just want him to get like some normal man pajamas.
No,
what I think of, when you look at Lands' End or LLB and you see those flannel PJs.
It's not going to happen.
He's just gray. He's got gray sweatpants and gray t-shirt and then.
Green. This is green. Yeah,
but old.
But it's my house coat.
I know. I just want.
I don't wear a robe.
We try and change our spouse, don't we? We try and make them be what we want them to be. And
that's right. I do not wear a robe, and you just probably learned a lot more about me than you actually wanted to know. Hey, we want to give a shout out to a listener. His name is Victor, and really appreciate the kind words he said to us. And this is Victor. Jay and Laura, first off, I want to thank you for all you do for us married folk. I love that struggle to get it right. My wife and I attended UDN here in Yuma this past Friday, and after our pastor invited us to join him and his wife, we sure are glad we did. I learned things and was reminded of other things that are very important for us husbands to do for our wives to feel secure in our relationship. I definitely left there challenged and will definitely step up to it. To answer your question as to the greatest challenge in my marriage, it's simple, to follow through with what I've learned. Wow, Victor, thank you. That is very kind of you and very, very much appreciated it. It's our pleasure to go out and to challenge folks every day. Well, not every day, but most days, every weekend. And super excited that we were able to challenge you. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about our history in ministry.
Well, because again, like Jay said, people ask us all the time, what do you do when you're at home? And the other question we get asked a lot is, so how
did you get started doing this?
How did you guys start in ministry? Have you always been in ministry together? And we would say yes. That was one of the things that attracted us to each other, was we both knew we wanted a spouse that we would minister together with. And that was part of the whole long conversation that we had before we decided to get married 3 days into our relationship.
Yes. Well, the truth of the matter is this. The name of this podcast is You Gotta Linger. And one of the hardest lessons that Laura and I have ever learned in our marriage is to slow down.
We're not slow people.
We're not slow people. In fact, I'm a freight train. Sometimes I go so fast. But today we're going to talk about the lessons that we've learned in our marriage and in our ministry, and how that might help your marriage as well. Our history in ministry starts almost right from the day we got married. We knew we wanted.
It was the day we got married.
Actually, before. Oh, it was.
Willie came up to you the day at our wedding.
Yes. My dad had a friend in Youth for Christ. I had sworn up and down that I was never going to get into Youth for Christ because my dad was a bigwig in Youth for Christ, and I didn't want to be seen as, following in Daddy's footsteps. But my dad was a bigwig in Youth for Christ in Michigan and Ohio and the upper Midwest. And we were in Atlanta, and at our wedding, the director from Atlanta came. His name's Willie Foote, and he came to the wedding. And he said, "What are you doing?" Well, at that time, I was working in the mall. And he said, "Have you ever thought about working for Youth for Christ?" And I said to him, well, the whole dad shadow thing. And he said very bluntly to me, he said, "I'm probably the only guy down here in the Southeast that knows your dad. So you're not going to be in his shadow. You'll be able to make your own way." And so
that was December 8th. And that between Christmas and New Year's, we went to Pigeon Forge. Is that what it is? Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We went with Willie invited us to go to kind of get a glimpse of the ministry there in Atlanta, Georgia, and how Youth for Christ works. And so we went and spent a weekend in Gatlinburg. I mean, why would we say no? We just had our honeymoon, so now we're going to go to the mountains of Tennessee and have a second honeymoon. And so it was great. It was a really good. I had experienced campus life in college in Mississippi. And so I kind of knew what Youth for Christ was all about. And Jay being in a Youth for Christ family, obviously he knew what it was all about. So we came back from that with a vision of, hey, let's start a chapter
so
here.
So in 1985, we started doing campus life in Gwinnett County, Georgia, a suburb of Atlanta. And
it's called Gwinnett County.
Gwinnett. We dove in head first, and we were young, we were passionate, and we were workaholics.
Yes, we worked 24/7. I mean, we were starting a new program. We were invested in kids' lives, and we really, after 3 years, found ourselves really burnt out. We were really burnt out. We had done everything we had set out to accomplish, but we had done it at the expense of our marriage, our personal lives. We were both way overweight, eating things we shouldn't be eating. And so when the opportunity came to move to Michigan, we thought this is perfect because we'll
hit the reset button.
It'll be a small town. Certainly it'll be a lot slower pace, which it is.
But ministry's ministry.
We found ourselves, now in Atlanta, we were starting a campus life club. Just one school we started there in Gwinnett County. Atlanta was already a chapter within itself. When we came to Central Michigan, we started Central Michigan Youth for Christ. So now not were we only starting one high school club, we were starting several high school clubs in an entire
in two
chapter.
different counties. Yep.
And so again, we threw ourselves right in just like we normally do, went full steam ahead and
are happy to say that, the Lord used us to build in spite of ourselves, to build a really great chapter that exists and thrives still to this day. But we came here in 87. And
thinking we were leaving the rat race.
Yes, thinking we were going to be able to hit the reset button. And it's funny because even when we had our first child, Tori, he was 10 days old and we're taking him to high school basketball games, and he caught a nasty cold. And it was kind of funny because at that age, they don't breathe through their mouth, they breathe through their nose. And so he was blowing little snot bubbles all over the place. It was disgusting. But as a guy, it was kind of cool.
But again, we found ourselves right back in those devastating habits that we had in Atlanta that we thought we could leave by moving to a small town. We found that they had just followed us because we hadn't made new habits. We just kept the old habits, just moved them to a different location. And so
it was 1994 when we sat down and said, this has got to stop. And we made our family mission statement, which we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. And that really helped us learn to linger, to say yes to the things that are important to say yes to, and to say no to those things that really, they might be good things, but they're not what God's called us to do.
Well, and what we found was, what we came to realize, both of us, was that God isn't calling us to do anything for him. He's calling us to be with him. And I think we do that in our marriages too. We try and do in our marriage rather than be in our marriage. And so what we're going to talk about today is the fact that we have to get out.
O-U-T.
You got to get out. O-U-T. You got to get out of those bad habits, get out of that rat race, get out of the mentality that you have to do, and let's just be. So we're going to use that word out and talk about 3 steps that we have to take in order to get out. And the first one is to just observe the greatness of God. I mean, when I think of the word linger, what do you think of when you think of linger? You think of me shopping because I linger.
Yes, you do. Well, I can tell you, this is true confessions of a middle-aged man. If you asked me that question when I was 30, 35, maybe even 40.
The question of what does it mean to linger?
I would say I have no clue.
true.
Seriously, I have no clue because I couldn't conceive of just lingering I mean, I am a type A driven personality, and it's go, 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 do, do, do. God threw a couple of curveballs my way. And over the years, I've now had pneumonia twice. For those of you that have had pneumonia, it just shuts you down. It doesn't slow you down. It shuts you down. And I think that was the Lord's way of saying you're pushing too hard, you're going too fast. And so I've had to learn to linger. And my wife has been very good at teaching me that. One of our favorite things to do in the summertime here in Michigan is to sit on our back porch with a glass of iced tea in the evening, read a book, play a game, do whatever, but just be together.
And observe the greatness of God. That's what we're talking about here with this observe the greatness of God. When we sit on our back patio, we have all kinds of wildlife. We have little bunnies that scurry around. We have squirrels. We have annoying little chipmunks. But just
an occasional deer.
But the beauty, the skies, the trees. One of our favorite things to do in the summertime is to play golf. And Jay always wants to move at a really fast pace because he says you got to keep the pace. If you don't keep the pace, then your game's good. But you know what? I like to walk slowly on the golf course. I like to look at everything.
Slow.
I like to take my time. And that's what I feel like the word linger means. When we're talking about observing the greatness of God, we're talking about how I shop. I go into a store and I like to look at everything.
Yes, she does.
And this is what we're saying, though, is observe.
Not just a few things, everything.
Observe the greatness of God. When we can start doing that, we can begin that first action of getting out.
And really, this is something that I never thought I would say or be or do. But one of our favorite vacations, if not our favorite vacation, is to go to the beach. We go to the beach at spring break down in Florida. And my favorite thing is to simply sit on the beach underneath an umbrella and watch the waves and listen to the waves and listen to the seagulls and observe God's greatness. And the most annoying thing in the world to me are people who think they've got to bring music to the beach. The ocean is the music people. The birds are the music people. You bring this music and you just destroy God's creation. But that's my own pet peeve. But the first way to leave the rat race, the first thing you have to do,
the first about being in your marriage,
is observe God's greatness. And that goes for your marriage as well. Observe the greatness that God has created in your spouse. That beautiful human being he's given you to walk through life with has amazing abilities, has amazing talents, has amazing love for you. Observe that and let that help your marriage grow.
And, I have ladies ask me all the time, well, Laura, how do I, he's so annoying and he's just, he does this, he does that. How do I focus on the positive? Well, here's my recommendation for observing the greatness in your spouse. Whether you're male or female, every morning when you get up out of bed and your feet touch that floor on the side of your bed, here's what I want you to do. Find one thing right then that you can think positively about your spouse all day. Maybe it's that he picked up his underwear last night, or it could be that she did the dishes last night and she, whatever it is, think of that one positive trait that you can focus on all day long. And then tomorrow you get up and you do the same thing, but you focus on a different trait and you will begin to observe the greatness of God in your marriage. Well, when we come back after the break, we're going to do the U and the T of the word out.
Hey everyone, this is Paul Thomas, Director of Live Events here at Celebrate Ministries. Time is running out. If you have wanted to be a part of Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea this July, if you want to go with your spouse to Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, time is running out. Our room block on the Norwegian Joy expires on March the 15th. Now, if you've wanted to go to Alaska, this is the trip for you. Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea sails out of Seattle on July the 13th. It returns to port on July the 20th, and you get 7 nights aboard the Norwegian Joy. Jay and Laura will be there along with guest speakers Craig and Sarah Beckman, and the LaFoons and the Beckmans will lead sessions while the ship is at sea. If this is something you've dreamed of as a couple, sign up by March the 15th at jayandlaura.com to be a part of our room block. Now, spring is upon us, and that means that Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel, which takes place on May 19th through 20th on Mackinac Island, is right around the corner. This is Jay and Laura's signature event, and we will welcome America's Got Talent finalist and sand artist Joe Castillo to the conference. This is a conference that gives you and your spouse a chance to slow down, a chance to focus on each other, and a chance to remember why you got married in the first place at one of the most romantic locations in America where time just seems to stop. Now, special guests Keith and Chandra Rushing of Better Half Ministries will be there as well. They'll be leading sessions during our special VIP experience, which takes place on May 20th and 21st. Now, you can find out more about Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel. You can find out all the pricing and all the details by visiting jandlaura.com. The Ultimate Date Night He Said, She Said winter tour continues this week. Stops in Cleveland and State College, Pennsylvania are on the schedule. And in the month, we will visit Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, Missouri, and Manheim, Pennsylvania. You can get tickets to the event near you. You can see where Jay and Laura are going as part of their tour by visiting jayandlaura.com. And finally, if you're interested in bringing Jay and Laura to your church, let us know. We are booking events now into 2020, and we'd love to hear from you. Just email us at podcast@jayandlaura.com for more information. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
Well, welcome back. We're talking about how to get out. How to get out and to really be in your marriage rather than
not out of your marriage.
Yeah, don't get out of your marriage. We're talking about getting out of the rat race, getting out of things that cause us to not be able to be in our marriage, but that make us want to do. And so we're using the word out. In the first segment, we talked about the O meaning to observe the greatness of God. And now we're going to talk about the letter U. Understand your sin.
Yes, you need to understand your sin.
You need to understand yours. We're sinful creatures. It's just what we are. And we're never going to be perfect for our spouse. We're never going to be perfect in our relationship. We're just never going to be perfect. And I think that's hard for people like you who are perfectionists, who think that they'll be perfect all the time.
Well, I am.
No, you're not.
Yeah, well, in my mind, I am.
Other people to
yes,
be perfect.
I do expect other people to be perfect, just like me. No, seriously, understanding your sin. Most of us have a hard time grasping this because of something that took place in our past that we just can't let go of. God's forgiven it, but we can't. Therefore, we're making ourselves God instead of God being God. Or some of us are grasping for something in the future that simply doesn't exist. And when we understand that we are fallen, sinful creatures, after observing the greatness of God, understanding our position, it really becomes humbling and easier to forgive your spouse.
At least it should be easier.
It should be. I mean, for me, when I understand what God has forgiven in me and continues to forgive in me, it makes it easier for me to forgive Laura for some of the silly things I get upset at her about doing.
I think sometimes, though, it's not so much about forgiving each other as it is about forgiving yourself. And I can remember I heard growing up, somebody said, I don't remember who it was, but it's probably one of my youth group leaders said, if you're not forgiving yourself, you're saying that you're greater than God because God has already forgiven you. And so, whether it's something you need to forgive yourself for today or yesterday or 10 years ago, you've got to forgive. And thankfully, when we talk about understanding our sin and understanding that we are sinful creatures, we have that hope in Jesus that yes, we are sinful creatures, but we have been forgiven and we can have new life. So
understand your sin. Don't dwell on your sin.
Right.
But understand you've got that juxtaposition of the greatness of God. We are fallen sinners, and that sin drives us. It motivates us. And that's sometimes what keeps us in the rat race.
Yeah, that's true. I think sometimes we're not trying to be, we're trying to do, because if we think that we do, the more we do, we can do something that will earn our way towards being a better person or
better spouse, have a better marriage.
And again, you can't do anything because we are sinful creatures and it's already been done for us in the person of Jesus Christ. So observe, you understand, and the T
this was my favorite.
Throw out the junk. Have you ever, we're just flabbergasted at how much junk we have in our house.
Oh my gosh.
And it continues. The year the last child left our house, we did this huge clean top to bottom. And Youth for Christ here in Central Michigan has a garage sale they do every year. And so for several years when the kids were in campus life, we would find a bunch of stuff that they could take to the garage sale and they could sell the stuff at the garage sale and it would help them go on their summer trips. Well, we thought once the kids left, we wouldn't have anything left.
We'd be out of junk, right?
Oh my word. We're still finding stuff every day. I clean out a cabinet and go, we could put this in the garage sale.
It's too funny. Bryce at YFC, who kind of coordinates the building there and the garage sale, we pull up every year and he's like, "You're back again? How much stuff do you guys have?" And it's just, you find it hidden in the corners or down in the basement.
Junk is like rabbits. They just continue to make babies all the time.
Junk multiplies itself.
Junk multiplies.
Well, it's true. And the junk in your marriage multiplies itself too. We get into bad habits. We get into poor attitudes. We get into all sorts of stuff that we don't address we just let it sit there. And for example, if you're not talking with your spouse every day, that's not good, because that communication is critical for the life of your relationship. So you've got to throw out whatever's keeping you from talking to your spouse, whether it's Facebook or the internet or television or your hobby, and take some time to really communicate with your spouse. That's a example of throwing out the junk.
Right. And really ask yourself individually, what junk do I have that's contributing to our marriage and I need to throw it out? And then, together, what junk do you have in your relationship that needs to be thrown out? Whatever. It could be something like pornography or adultery to that extent, or it could be to the other extent that it's, just a bad tone of voice, or, you didn't tell me this,
sarcasm.
Or you didn't tell me that. Sarcasm is not a sin. It is a gift. I have to keep telling you that. But yes, whatever it is, and throw out the junk. You know what? We want to encourage you to get out and to be in your marriage and not do.
To linger with your spouse.
To linger, to have that time where you're just really relaxing in each other and being, and not constantly doing.
Well, and I can hear some of you right now. Wait a minute, we've got 3 kids under the age of 10. You want me to linger? There's no way. You've got to build habits into your family life where, at 8 o'clock, the kids go to bed. Yes, even the 10-year-old. We had strict bedtimes for our kids, even in high school. And yeah, did we get complaints? Yeah, all the time. Our rule was you don't have to go to sleep, but you've got to go to your bedroom and you're going to shut the door because mom and I need private time. And that was one of the smartest things we've ever done, is setting bedtime for our kids. And you know what? It's good for them. Kids need sleep. So it's not like you're doing something mean to them. You're actually helping them and helping yourself at the same time.
And building those habits into your kids that will help them linger in the times to come. Sometimes I think I know you always thought when I linger, I was being lazy, until you got pneumonia and you realized, you got to take some of that time for yourself. And encouraging your kids to do the same, encouraging your spouse, encouraging yourselves as a couple, as a family, and kids as individuals to just, go sit down in a corner and read a book, or go sit down at the table and just color or paint or whatever. So really encouraging you to linger today in your marriage. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We would just ask that you would rate us, that you would share us. Jay and I are all about helping busy couples stay happily married for life.